again to introduce this hour of discussion with the Democratic Socialists of America. We have three brilliant guests, and we are going to discuss very important issues. We are living crucial times where borders have been reinstalled in some places, but borders of solidarity have been borderless solidarity has been activated globally and locally in the US as well. And today we will discuss what is the perspective from the DSA on the socialist internationalism in the 21st century. And for that purpose, we have three guests, Blanca Esteves, who is originally from El Salvador, and now she lives in Arkansas. She is a part of the National Political Committee of Arkansas. Austin Gonzalez from Puerto Rican background, who is in Richmond, I think. I think that I made a mistake. No, it's correct, Richmond. And he has been the leader of the chapter of the DSC there since early 2017. And since 2019, he has served as a member of the DSA National Political Committee. And then we have part of the international team, Ethan Earl, who is going to join us from abroad. So to start the conversation, as a Guatemalan living abroad for a long time and seeing many of the struggles, having this unique space that is the DSA in the US, give us a little ray of hope of a revival of a real internationalism rooted in grassroots America. And we will start our conversation with a vision from Blanca and from Austin on the current situation of how the US and how the DSA places itself in this new research of internationalism. We are speaking in the ashes of the second Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, worsened pandemic, and perhaps more hopefully, this movement that started in the US and that spread all over the world led by Black and indigenous communities, and like really unleashed a profound reflection on who we are and how we treat our peoples and how history has shaped the society, the unjust society we live today. So Blanca and Austin, as leaders in the DSC, could you introduce what is the position, briefly, what is the position of the DSC for the international audience? I mean, I think that is not so well known globally, and I think it would be very important to understand more about it and more. My says often that you think where you're grounded and your unique perspective on this new movement born in the US and flowing flowing internationally. I would like to hear your feelings and hear your perspectives and your hopes on this particular moment and the role of DSC on seizing the moment and building something out of it.
Thanks, Renata. I'll just give a little brief introduction into DSA for everybody watching, and then Austin could give a little current situation. So the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, the largest socialist organization in the United States. We have over 70,000 people that are members in good standing at this current moment. And we believe that working people should run both the economy and society democratically to meet human needs first, not to make profits for the few. And we're a political and organizing activist organization. We're not a party for everybody watching. We're an organization, and we do electoral campaigns within the organization, but we are not a party. So we have campus and community-based chapters. DSA has a youth wing as well, YDSA, that organizes on campuses, on university campuses, community colleges, trade schools, and DSA, which is the organization that comes after YDSA. And we use a variety of tactics. Really, we have many working groups. Like, we are currently here on behalf of the International Working Group. So we focus on spreading international socialism, trying to make connections with other countries, making sure that we're advancing the international working class in everything that we do. And there's many ways that anybody could plug in to start their socialist journey through DSA. I think that's it on the background. Austin, if you want to give a little bit of current events, and then we can talk.
Sure. So I'll follow up on a few of the things you've said there, Blanca, as you've summarized a lot of the structure of our organization very well. In the United States, the socialist left, it's been fragmented for a very long time. And Renata, you even mentioned earlier, enthusiasm coming from somebody, who's from Guatemala, right? There's a lot of enthusiasm to see the left kind of coming, or we hope coming back together in the United States. And, it wasn't until a couple of key events occurred that that enthusiasm for socialist politics in the United States began to gain steam. As far as the growth that Blanca touched upon, that we in the Democratic Socialists have experienced, there's two key events that are often cited as the most important, right? The first would be the 2016 presidential primary run of Bernie Sanders, who DSA was, of course, very close to and very, very excited and hopeful for. And the second factor that has led to the growth of DSA would be the election of Donald Trump, right? People that want to get involved in fighting against his racist policies, his far right agenda, and DSA has provided a home for a lot of people to do that work. When Bernie Sanders initially ran for president, a lot of us on the left, as I said, we had hopes that he'd be able to not just make a big enough dent to get people dreaming about socialism again, but he actually, he exceeded a lot of people's wildest expectations and really introduced a new life into U.S. politics, as well as rehabilitating that term socialist, right, which has been a curse word in the United States for my entire life. Now, unfortunately, Bernie wasn't able to win his primary, of course, but, his run did bring a new generation of socialists together. And this can be viewed most easily through our organization, the Democratic Socialists of America, which has experienced a lot of growth. Speaking from my experience here in Virginia and kind of relating to some of the current events that have been going on here, we just in the last few years, it was myself and a good group of comrades that came together to start the first actual DSA chapter here in Virginia, specifically in the city of Richmond. And I know Blanca did the same in her neck of the woods over in Arkansas. Speaking of my experience in Virginia, Virginia's experienced a lot of changes in the past decade, and it's been a part of some of the major demographic shifts that have occurred throughout the United States. These demographic shifts have led to, at least in Virginia, I'd say a very bifurcated and at times a very tense atmosphere. This most famously culminated in the infamous white supremacist rally that happened in Charlottesville, Virginia on August 12th, 2017. It was myself alongside a strong contingent of about, I'd say, 40 DSA comrades that were also present in Charlottesville that day to help counter-protest against the far-right forces that had gathered there. Our contingent was literally on the same block that the crash happened. So, we've seen up close and personal the tensions that have built up here in the United States in the last couple of years. Trump at the time, and he continues to very consciously fan those flames, and fan the flames of that incident in particular, when he declared that there were good people on both sides, or whatever the hell he said. Things in Virginia continue to be very tense, and they've only been exacerbated after the onset of the COVID pandemic, right? As well as the latest upsurge in Black Lives Matter protests, which have been a response to the killing of George Floyd. The COVID-19 pandemic, it's been nothing short of an epic disaster in the United States, and in Virginia as well, and honestly, of course, in the world, right? It's not a good thing for anybody. In particular, here in the United States, we have the largest number of cases, and that number has only continued to climb as some of the more far right state governments in the country have happily exacerbated things by ignoring responsible protocols in attempting to contain the virus. And as far as the federal government, Trump's response to COVID, it's been based on right-wing paranoia and a complete ignorance of science and a betrayal of any sense of community, right? My state, Virginia, it's often ranked as one of the worst states in the entire United States for workers. And this has only been amplified by COVID. I've worked as a union organizer in Virginia, and I've had many union members talk to me about how employers have been forcing them to go to work during the pandemic without proper protective equipment, which is definitely not good, to say the least. In the United States, the lack of work protections, it's made it very difficult for people to do anything but listen to their bosses when they are ordered to go to work. And I have to say, kind of once again tying this into a lot of the current events that have been going on, in my opinion, the pandemic and the response to it, it's been part of the impetus for the uprisings that have erupted across the United States. The current uprising, of course, has been led by Black activists under the banner of Black Lives Matter, and it was ignited after the brutal killing of George Floyd by the police in Minneapolis, Minnesota. After the protests escalated into the burning down of a police precinct in Minneapolis, protests have continued to erupt in solidarity across the United States in response to the police brutality that is endemic in the country and disproportionately affects the Black population. These protests, speaking again of my experience in Virginia, these protests have occurred on a nightly basis. They've included large swaths of the population, even here in my state, which I should say, it's not only been in the city of Richmond, which is the capital of Virginia, but it's been in the counties. It's been in the suburbs. It's, people have risen up to remove the, former Confederate imagery, which is on display all throughout Virginia. And not just that, people are out here demanding actual reforms to the corrupt policing systems that are in place throughout the United States. And that's been really amazing to see. What's been most taking aback for me personally during all of this is just seeing how young a lot of these protesters have been. A lot of them, they're young people that are stepping into the streets for the first time to try and take back the future that has been stolen from them by this corrupt political system. The system has been designed literally to prevent any actual change in this country, and that's something that we've been trying to fight back against in the DSA and throughout the activist community. That's a big part of why DSA's continued to grow in the past few years as well. As Blanca touched upon, we've hit at least, we're at 70,000 and growing. So I'm definitely optimistic for what the future holds for our organization, especially at this time when things are so uncertain.
How's the perception people in the by the protest, because it's wildfire. I mean,
sorry, Renata, you're kind of breaking up.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yep, better now.
But, no,
it's going in and out.
Can you hear me? Hello. I hope and big apologies for those watching. So the international community is different somebody locally and internationally. the DSA, what we offer and how people can have. Oh, no.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here. I think sort of to the extent that I understood the question, it was breaking up a little, but just to repeat it for some of our audience, we're going to also talk a little bit about our international work, what DSA has been doing abroad. Starting off with that question, I'll just say sort of getting back to a few of the comments that were made by Blanca and by Austin, we are an organization that has grown a whole lot very quickly. We have 70,000 members now. We had fewer than 5,000, around 5,000 before 2016, before the big explosion that came with the Bernie Sanders campaign, with the election of Donald Trump. And then, so we're a very young organization. Pre-2016, the average age of our membership was in its late 60s. In 2018, the average age of our membership was in its early 30s. And I've just been told by Blanca that as of today, our membership average age is 27. So this is also a big generational shift. Blanca also laid out for you that DSA is an unusual organization by international standards, by US standards as well. We're not a party, we're not organized like a party, we don't have a party platform, but we do participate in elections. We endorse both our own candidates and sometimes left-wing Democrats. And we do have a structure and institutional framework that differentiates us from social movements or other activist groups. So we're sort of a hybrid organization with one foot in electoral struggle and the other foot in the street, supporting climate justice, labor struggle, supporting the movement for Black lives, supporting the working class and struggle for justice in the many forms that takes. So now turning to our international work, our international committee has actually been around for quite a long time, since at least 2003 and really before in a slightly different form. I think many people on this call who are familiar with small socialist organizations will know that international committees are often outsized when compared to the rest of the organization. And this happens when there's, not a lot of chance to make a real political impact in a certain moment. So between 2016, when we took on a whole bunch of new members, and 2018 or 19 or so, DSA was really taking off. It was suddenly able to make its weight felt in US political discourse, getting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib elected to Congress in 2018 and taking part in a whole host of campaigns. And during this time, the focus of our membership was very much on domestic politics. It was focused on all those homegrown horrors that are taking place right before our eyes within the United States, which all of you are surely seeing on your television sets and Twitter feeds across the world. And the International Committee during this time was not updated to keep pace with the organization that we had become and that we're still becoming. So since around the start of 2019, we've been in a process of internal reform. It's been slowed by the fact that we're young, that we don't have a real roadmap or an established institutional process, by the fact that we're an all-volunteer organization. All of us in leadership are doing this around the edges of our day jobs. I believe that Austin and Blanca took the day off today to do these talks. This is the type of work that we're doing. So it's very bare bones compared to any organization our size. And at the same time, we've been slowed by the fact that we're pretty much battling one political crisis after another through this entire most recent period. So that said, over the last several months, I've been working closely with our pre-existing international committee, with Austin, Blanca, with other national political committee members, and with my fellow IC co-chair, Carrington Morris, to reconstruct an international committee that does fit to the organization that we are today and the one we aspire to become. So as of pretty much today, we're excited here to announce that we have finalized reform of our international committee. We'll have a new slate of leaders for regional and thematic subcommittees. We're creating a steering committee to help lead international solidarity campaigns and political education, creating a secretariat to oversee our diplomatic affairs and provide counsel to our international political committee. And crucial to this, and most importantly, we will be opening our international committee through its subcommittees to all of our DSA members. So, just finishing up, as we've grown in size and influence by letting our hundreds and now thousands of wildflowers bloom across the United States, and by finding ways to create greenhouses where it's possible to cultivate spaces for those wildflowers to grow together and cross-pollinate, all along, the truth has been that most of our international work, our quote unquote international work, is taking place not in the international committee, but in our chapters, led by people like Austin and Blanca and their local work, folks shutting down embassies and welcoming delegations, showing up to decry the coup against Evo Morales, to support our Filipino and Filipina comrades fighting the new anti-terror bill there, and so on. So our hope is that this newly reformed international committee does not become the place to lead those efforts, but rather a place where our members who are already doing international solidarity work can find each other, can get involved for the first time, can join each other's projects, can strengthen each other's projects and our shared goals of international socialism. So from our side, from the international committee side, we provide that space, we provide national level institutional structure, connective tissue between chapters and also between our members and our elected leaders, and also are able to hold up the international priorities that are identified by those leaders and by our national conventions, stuff like our extensive work around BDS and in solidarity with Palestine, our commitment to eco-socialism, our commitment to immigrant rights and to putting an end to our militaristic immigration and customs enforcement agency, to our recognition that we must build solidarity with like-minded comrades throughout the Americas, from Bolivia to Brazil, Venezuela to Cuba, Honduras to Mexico, and beyond. We know we have a lot of work still to do, both internally to become a truly socialist, international socialist organization, and we have a lot of work to do in the United States, whose great wealth and power is underpinned by violence and exploitation abroad, particularly in the global South, be it through the power of the dollar or over the barrel of a gun. And we also know that time is of the essence, with 12 years, according to the UN, to avert the worst of climate change, and with hundreds of millions, if not billions of people suffering right now under the current regime, and who will suffer much more after that expiration date. And we understand the responsibility of the United States and all of that, not just the Republicans or Donald Trump, but also the Democratic administrations that preceded them. So it's a big task. It's more than any one organization can do, but it's also one that no organization can contribute to if it's not set on building bridges with like-minded folks in the United States, in its own country, and elsewhere in the world. So for that reason, we're really happy to be here with all of y'all. We're grateful for this conversation and where it can lead, because we do believe that we have a world to win.
Yes, and connected to that, I mean, international is key. I mean, your case is the heart like sanctions. Is we Blanca to the rescue, it seems.
I'm so sorry, I'm muted this whole time. Hi, Renata. Sorry about the confusion. Okay, let me ask the question. We all agree that internationalist action needs to grapple with historical and ongoing imperialist domination by the US. As organized socialists in the unique position in the heart of empire, what could internationalism look like in the US, operationalized as strategy and tactics? And this one goes for Austin to start. Thank you.
Cool. So I'll kick us off here. Socialist internationalism is so important to me, as I know it is very important to you, Blanca, and to a lot of our members in DSA. Being a socialist in the United States, it means, and Ethan, you even touched upon this a little bit, it means centering principled anti-imperialism, right? Anything short of that, quite simply, is a dereliction of our responsibilities as socialists in the belly of the beast. In my opinion, foreign policy is an arena where leftists in the United States, both in the, I guess, mainstream sense of the word leftist, as well as the less mainstream sense, those kind of more underground organizations. It's the simple fact of the matter is that we have failed at times in our duty to hold elected officials accountable, as well as holding our movement leaders accountable to a more socialist internationalist foreign policy. Frankly, it's unacceptable for any major candidate for president or any sort of office in the United States to consider themselves somebody who is on the left, but maintain any position except an end to sanctions across the world, an end to the Cuban blockade, and an end to the support of the colonization of Palestine by Israel. I think DSA has begun to make major strides in some of these aspects, and I can simply look to our most recent national convention last year in Atlanta, Georgia, to give examples of some of these steps forward that us in the DSA and throughout the left in the United States have been making forward. We adopted a policy of decolonization with respect to the colonies of the United States in Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, and the Northern Mariana Islands, as well as the indigenous territories throughout the United States and any overseas bases and military installations. We also adopted a policy of solidarity with Cuba and a demand to end the Cuban blockade. And we also deepened our commitment to the BDS movement, as Ethan touched upon a bit earlier, by beginning the formation of a national BDS working group intended to follow up on the BDS commitment that we already adopted at our 2017 convention. Now, all these steps forward are simply rhetorical unless we actually put concrete commitment to it, right? As I mentioned with BDS, we've formed our working group to do just that. Our decolonization resolution provides for the formation of a decolonization working group, which has been in the works. And the Cuban Solidarity Resolution that I mentioned as well, stipulated the official joining of DSA into an organization known as the National Network on Cuba, which is a collection of Cuban solidarity organizations. So we've begun to take concrete steps forward to support countries throughout the global South in response to the imperialist foreign policy that the United States imposes on the rest of the world. All of these are more concrete gains that we have made in the socialist movement here in the United States to have a more internationalist foreign policy and to make up for some of the mistakes that have been made by folks in the United States in the past, right? This is the beginning of a long-running project and ties into the aforementioned reforms of our international committee that Ethan mentioned earlier, and I'll actually pass it back over to you, Ethan, or Blanca, whoever pops up first who wants to follow up with that.
Thanks so much for that, Austin. I wanted to say on our local levels, we're starting to really understand how we're all tied together in this struggle, and we're really, after the structure was created for our new international committee, part of our project is to really begin to disseminate some of this education to everybody in a way that's contextualized and they can understand, and tie it into their local conditions as well. And I think that's all I wanted to add. Ethan?
Yeah, I mean, those were both really, really good answers. Just to add two very quick things on this question of what strategies to pursue. The first is, perhaps it sounds very, very obvious, but I think it needs to be said, and it's an inside-outside strategy, and we pursue it aggressively. From the inside, this means working on the few elected officials we can work on, pushing them as hard as we can, building support, for example, to stop our illegal funding of the ongoing war in Yemen, the United States, illegal funding that is, not DSAs, or to stop US sanctions against Venezuela or Iran. And then from the outside, it means no justice, no peace. You know, we will blockade embassies. We will deplatform those who would legitimize, for example, the recent coup against Evo Morales. We have a huge group of very active activists that are ready to also take our struggle to the street. So I think being really aggressive and intentional about that inside-outside strategy is important. And the second thing is I think it's sort of movement heuristics or shortcuts. Every country has them based on your own particular histories, the histories of your left, the history of power formation in your country, and they're just waiting these shortcuts to be unlocked. So to give one little example, in the case of the United States, I would mention from a leftist perspective, Venezuela. So for much of the international left, this is a fraught and testy issue. How do you feel about Maduro? What's the state of the Bolivarian revolution? How and why and what year might it have gone astray? And it is too in the United States, but I would argue that it doesn't need to be to the same degree, because from a US activist and leftist perspective, there is one overarching truth, and it's that the US has been destabilizing and trying to overthrow democratically elected governments in Venezuela for decades. And it should not be just simple, but actually a moral responsibility of the US left and of US activists to stand in uncompromising opposition to external meddling and to the undermining of democracy and self-governance, whether that is taking place in Venezuela or Bolivia or anywhere else. So I would point to this heuristic, this shortcut that allows us to bypass some of the debates that have at other moments entrenched the left, so that we can all work together.
So I'm sorry, I'm back. Hopefully my connection is restored now. And we are back into the heart of empire. And now empire changed somehow. It changed, it has changed in the last 30 years because before the US dominated many areas. Now it added an additional layer of the global domination, and that is technology. Sold as something benign and as something that will unite everybody, improve democracy, increase solidarity. Now we open the eyes and we are aware that we are before a global structure of exploitation, extractivism, and domination. And you are at the very heart of this merge of military empire, economic empire, and digital empire. So I'm very, very curious to hear what is the DSA perspective on this, and how can we create from the inside and from the outside, how can we understand better, to strategize better, and to achieve democratic victories on dismantling this merging, this very, very, very dangerous merger between the corporate power of tech empires and the military and political power of US empire. So I don't know who wants to start with it, Blanca or Ethan, Austin, please feel free to jump in. I know that it's not easy, but it will really illuminate our international audience. I think there is a natural point of connection of solidarities and strategies and tactics on how we tackle big tech connected to Pentagon and ICE and all these very dangerous upcoming structure of control, surveillance, and domination. Yeah.
I'm just going to point out that through COVID, yes, you're right, all of this is occurring and we should be organizing against it. And also, we've been able to get kind of through COVID, you wear your mask, you can have goggles on, so that has kind of helped our security as well. And I'm going to be honest with you, Renata. I believe that I would like to learn more from you about this as well. And I think Ethan is ready to go.
Well, that stole the last part of my comment, which was going to turn the question back to Renata, who is one of the left's, broader left's foremost experts on this subject. So I would like to hear from Renata afterwards. Without being particularly a digital and tech expert, I would sort of take a step back and say that it makes me think about the long-running debate on the left that was well characterized by Audre Lorde's analogy about using the master's tools to destroy the master's house. Can we do this? To what extent is it possible? And Audre Lorde's short reply is no, not possible. But these tools can serve in certain shorter-term tactical situations along the way. So that's her answer. I would tend to agree with it. I think that Facebook and Twitter or whatever, they will not be the tools that destroy the digital empire. However, they can be fantastic tactical tools along the way. They have been for DSA for sure. For anybody out there who is not familiar with DSA Twitter, it is a wild and vibrant and complicated and beautiful space, and we would not be what we are today without it. I could also point to today's call that we're having all together, and any number of different ways in which we're able to use these tools along the way. I would connect this to another quote from Gramsci, who writes of the interregnum in which the old is dying and the new cannot yet be born. I think that we're in a world historic interregnum right now, and a lot is up for grabs. He continues by writing about the morbid symptoms that appear during this period. And I think that the digital empire is a clear sign of the morbid symptoms in this interregnum. I also believe, from my perspective, that it's somewhat of a hollow empire and remains a site for struggle. So a lot's going to be decided in these next years. We knew it already. We now clearly know it in the midst of the COVID crisis. We know that the state is coming back. We don't know what kind of state that's going to be. If it's going to be an anti-democratic and authoritarian state, or a democratic one, a repressive state, or a liberatory one. The early signs in terms of who holds power now are not promising, but nonetheless, the old order is dying if it's not already dead, and there is a new order to be created. And one of our goals within that grand struggle is to liberate ourselves from the digital empire, to bring social media and other aspects of the tech universe under some mixture of state ownership and cooperative control. And I still don't believe that Facebook under cooperative control will be the tool that ultimately liberates us. But it would then no longer be the master's tool. It would be ours, and it would be one that we could wield more confidently as we're going forward in our struggles for liberty and justice and equality otherwise. But with that, I mean, again, I would really also love to hear Renata's thoughts on this.
I think that something that has been transformed. I mean, this crisis of COVID showed us two things. Show us the power. I was after the revelations of Edward Snowden in 2013. I was very, very, very afraid. I mean, maybe it was not that visible in our movements and social movements. The power concentrated in the hands of state by the NSA, CIA, the combination of all these agencies to surveil and control all over the world. What the COVID crisis showed me is that even if I thought that my biggest fears were not confirmed, and I was very, very happy to find out and to notice these imperfections in this total surveillance and control system. It became very, very, very clear that this alleged ability of this big surveillance apparatus to surveil and control all of us was imperfect, because not even China could find their patient zero. You know, we were told before that we were so intensively monitored that many activists were paralyzed by fear. And as Blanca was pointing out, very quickly with mandatory masks, with goggles and things, all this infrastructure of oppression by face recognition was basically useless. And what we need now is, but then also very worrying aspects arose from the crisis, like the monitoring of activists with military equipment domestically in the US. And for many in the US, this was an extraordinary situation, but all over the world, especially in the global South, this has been a very intense process of high tech for the poorest neighborhoods to surveil and control and to monitor, and military level quality of high tech to repress the most marginalized members of our society. I think that the key, the response, and something that we, the DSC and the Progressive International, can build together is a positive vision of a socialist internet, of a socialist ecosystem of technologies to advance humanity, to bring basically better lives to all of us. It is not enough. It's not enough at all to oppose these big tech giants, which are much more than just technology companies. They're powerful financial actors that refuse to pay taxes. They are the new exploiters of workers. They are the new blockers of political and labor reforms in parliaments. They're new actors that we need to examine and that we need to attack by different angles. That's pending work for progressive forces everywhere, and especially in the key jurisdictions where they have their offices. But that's not enough. A desire, an honest desire that I have, and something that it will be wonderful to be able to build together, and especially to get the youngest members of the DSA involved and the Progressive International involved, is to design a positive vision of the future. We are still at the very early stages of technology and digital. Whatever the future of the world is, the future that we want or the future that we can achieve, digital will be present. So something really heartening is that possibility to build it not only from the privileged vision of Silicon Valley, but from the vision of workers in the US, of workers in Latin America, in Asia, from progressive minds, from feminist minds, from build something possible and strong to organize ourselves and to break this dependence on tech monopolies that only care about profit and about power and not about people.
Renata, somebody was asking how to build international power with this. And talking to each other, of course, is important, but more is needed. Yes. Do you have anything to add on how to build international power in digital empire?
Yes, I think that the next strategic step on building this digital power will come. There will be like a big push on e-commerce very soon. And we know who is going to win and who is going to lose on that. By being locked in our houses and restricted in movement, there has been this idealization of e-commerce. Or, oh, how convenient is that the boxes arrive to the door of your house. What is it? It has been invisible all this time is all the human sacrifices behind that box arriving at your doorstep. Usually, is the result of exploitation, is of data-intensive processes that live outside the small shop, that destroy the micro enterprises, that sacrifice, the little independent single mother that is selling like snacks around the corner, and that concentrate this retail power in the hand of the richest. I think that's dissecting and dismantling what e-commerce means to our communities, to our environment, and to our global community is very, very good starting point, and a very cohesive thing that we can explore all together, because it is very complex net of international forms of extractivism, exploitation, and abuse. And it should be, we should, together with exposing it and attacking it from different angles, we should design ways to reverse it. That's one thing. The second thing is education. We cannot give up public education, and we are seeing a very accelerated, very quiet, I mean, we are not discussing this enough, very quiet privatization of all platforms of education and monetization of our children, basically. After the excuse is the pandemic, the vehicle is the Googles and the Zooms and all these platforms that are concentrated in commercial hands that are not necessarily commercial hands reflecting socialist values. The education and the health, the health delivery is too important to be like speedy privatized, just using as an excuse a pandemic. This pandemic is very serious, but it's also an excuse to push for things that the elites have been wanting to push for a long time. So those will be my two invitations to the international audience to join minds and efforts. And I think that is the perfect marriage between two things: intergenerational, because I think that it will refresh a lot the topics very close to the realities of very, very young Democratic Socialists of America, and also this from the US, how this is pushed into all the world and how can we bring it back. Yeah.
Thanks, Renata. That was great. Great answer. I want to say, can I wrap up? Can I give a little synopsis? I feel like what we are talking about is the workers. And I feel like as long as what we're doing always focuses on the workers and how we can promote and achieve an international working class based on our lived experiences, and also utilizing the conditions that are radicalizing the workers in live time, will really help us achieve that international power that we're working on. And we can't give up. So everybody, I know that we want to see it overnight and we want to see it as quickly as possible, but you can't give up. We're in a marathon. We're in a we have to remember that we're going to keep building, and that it's not for us, it's for the rest of the futures that come after us. We definitely want to build a better world for the next generations. So it takes a while. And I think somebody was asking that. You just can't give up. Try to get plugged in wherever you can and just start building in your community, lifting up workers' voices and tying in international struggle as well.
And we need to teach our children and teach our young generations that technology is politics, for example, and that borders are artificial, and the borders are just simply separating brothers and sisters. And as we have seen tonight, today, we share so much struggles in common. And you, the DSA, you are a key part of this new internationalism and this new vision that we need to transmit to all these kids that were protesting racist policies and racist statutes 1 month ago. We need to get this energy flowing And that will take a lot of community efforts. That will take a lot of watching movies, sharing books, sharing stories, and sharing experiences across borders as well. So it has been like really incredible to learn from the DSA and to explore new ways of collaboration. But I'm sure that many people watching are like wondering how to join, how to collaborate, how to be more active in these efforts. You know, if any of you wants to add anything to this.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think there's a lot of different ways that that folks across the world can get involved. For anybody in the United States, you know, watching this and wondering how they can get involved with USA, with DSA, very easy. DSAUSA.org/join. And for anybody across the world who's just curious about DSA's positions, well, not necessarily our platform, but all of our different things that we're fighting for in the United States and across the world. Once again, that website DSAUSA.org is a good resource to look into. And you know, Socialist Internationalism, it doesn't even just you know, it doesn't limit itself to just one organization. This is all a collaborative effort. It's very important to get involved in whatever, you know, local leftist or socialist organizations exist in your country, you know, across the world, to actually build that Socialist International, which is why, you know, speaking for myself, and I know speaking for a lot of DSA members, I'm very appreciative of the effort that you all at the Progressive International have been trying to put together. This is a very important goal, especially in this world that we live in right now, which is globalized, right? It's impossible to look at any sort of issues that occur in one country and look at them as not connected to other issues in most other countries in the world. For example, Blanca just mentioned in the chat here, you know, we recently had a call with Revolución Democrática in Chile, which are part of the Frente Amplio, the Broad Front. And, you know, you just look at the issues that have gone on in Chile. These are related to the neoliberal, the Washington Consensus, right? The neoliberal economic model that has been imposed on countries throughout the world, and in particular in the global South, by the United States. But yeah, it's just very important to remember that all these issues are linked, and that we, as long as we work together, we can find a solution together. Ethan.
Yeah, I'll just add to that also folks from the United States who are not currently living in the United States can also join in the same way. For other folks, who are neither residents of the United States nor citizens of the United States, it's complicated for us legally to allow you to join just in the way that we're incorporated in the United States, but we're exploring actively ways of creating a sort of friends of the DSA abroad or something of this sort to help plug folks into the movement in whatever way we can. Renata, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, of course. And a great way to join is to join the Progressive International. We are like an umbrella organization with many movements like the DSA. So if you don't fit the requirements of the DSA, come join us and participate, and let's build this together. Like as Blanca was saying, and Austin was saying, and Ethan was saying, it takes the world to change the world. So we are like a constellation of movements and spaces, and we are really working hard to revitalize this movement, to invite young people not to feel like annoyed or apathetic, but active and excited about sharing these spaces and learning more and getting more involved, because there's the hope. We have Bernie, but we need 1,000 Bernies. We need 1,000 Alexandras. We need 1,000 Austins and Ethans and Blancas to change the terrible situation that we are into. But yeah, that invitation. I promise it will be fun. I promise it will not be boring.
We need thousands of Renatas too. We need so many of ourselves to really get educated. Really appreciate you, Renata, having us here and really showing us and teaching us things as well. So we really need everybody.
Yes, and we need like, I cannot emphasize enough that it has to be fun. I mean, we come from and we need to get people. Like, people must fall in love with internationalism, and that's the key. When you love differences, when you love the places we come from, how that knowing the other will enrich your life, will make it better, and respecting the other places, not bumping them, and not especially not paying with your hard-earned income and your taxes, paying that the other countries are bombed. That's the importance of voting, is when you know the person on the other side, and when you know the political struggles of people similar to you, you will think twice your vote, not only thinking on your vote where you are born and where you're voting, but where it can impact. And that, I think that goes at the core of what the Democratic Socialists of America are doing, because if you transmit that love, and if you transmit this shared struggle, that's the key. That's the key of a peaceful world, and that's the key of saving our planet. Imagine all that money going into guns and tanks and military bases. Imagine if those were like bases dedicated to research on how to save the environment and how to bring a better future to everybody. It will be a different world, definitely.
Well, it's ours to win, so we can do it.
Any closing remarks, Austin, Ethan? Sorry, the ladies monopolizing.
Sure, yeah. Once again, just would like to thank you all so much for this opportunity. Socialist internationalism and just having connections to the world community is so important to me, to this organization. I know to you all as well. So this is definitely something that we hope to be able to help with more in the future. And as Blanca said, we have a world to win.
Yeah, and I'll just add very briefly, I'm located now in Paris, and I've been watching what's been happening in the United States with the uprising against police violence and to make Black Lives Matter from afar. And I've really loved to see all of the support and the outpouring, the mobilizations from across the world, from, every corner of the world. We've seen them. And I've really enjoyed and loved what I've seen here in France, because it's been mobilizations that have both decried police violence in the United States and also connected it to France's history of police violence, of colonialism, of its problematic relationship to anti-racist struggles as they've been combined through France's particular history of republicanism. So, I would just say that take these opportunities to show solidarity with us, also to call out what's happening in your own countries and in your own struggles. And it's by connecting these different struggles, not treating them as like something foreign and alien that's happening somewhere else, but it's something that really shines light on what's happening right next door to you, that we're able to concretely build international solidarity and concretely win struggles. So thanks to all of y'all for being here and for all of the work that you're all doing in your own communities and you're doing right here to try to connect with other like-minded folks in different parts of the world.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And I apologize for the technical glitches, but I hope that it's your first time watching this and not the last one. As I was saying, we are building this together, and the next 6 months in the US and everywhere are going to be crucial. So let's stay united. Let's learn from each other, and let's change the world for good. Thank you so much for watching us tonight.